pressurizing there pretty good. It's fine. Oh, jeez. There it goes. You're watching Boys on the Farm, where we don't even pretend to know what we're doing. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm a little bit bummed today because I had hoped to start a fun project involving a new welding device and a bumper build for the lift truck that desperately needs it, because if you've seen the bumper, it is trashed. It's totally the ugliest thing we have in our fleet. But we're gonna be back under the hood of a truck today. Dan was out on routes the other day, called me from the road and said, this truck is just not climbing the hills. He was getting like 25 miles an hour up the hills, and this truck is never fast. It is a very slow truck, but it's not that slow, and so something's definitely wrong. It seems to be running fine. We're gonna get under the hood and see. We may learn something about turbos today, which I know nothing about, so that'll be interesting. But this is our old faithful 12 valve Cummins. Okay, so if you can see, there's the turbo right back in there. And what we did is right down in there, you can see some shiny new hose clamps. See if I can point to them right here. And those guys are on this tiny little high pressure tube that runs into the wastegate actuator. And so we were hoping that that tube being busted, it was cracked and the hose clamps were falling off. We were hoping that that was going to be the problem. Replace the tube, didn't seem to do anything. So now we're going to move down the line and test the actuator itself to see if the wastegate is opening. Okay, so I stuck my hand back there, tried to feel to see if the wastegate felt open. It actually does feel like it's open. My next step is to put this little piece of hose on the end of my air compressor and rig up some sort of gauge on there and hook up the air compressor to the actuator and see if I can get the actuator to move. And if it's just dumping the pressure out the back out of the wastegate, then obviously we know that we've got our problem. This is what I use to test the wastegate actuator. It's just a high pressure hose. I just got this at the auto parts store and cut it off and clamped it in there, and then it's clamped into the actuator. You can pressurize that and just feel back there. You can feel the actuator moving back and forth. We've got to see if we can get it right in there. Okay, so we blocked off the intake there, and we put a brass air fitting into the manifold there, and we're just gonna pump it up and see what happens. Do you hear it? It's right there. That was fast. It's coming right behind the band here. Alright, well, we definitely have a boost leak up here in this boot thing. It's like I can put my thumb over it and it stops. Okay, so we were definitely leaking out of this, but that seems a little bit too easy. So we're just going to take a look at it and see if we can figure out where we're losing air. I'm betting that we just created that leak when we were messing with it the other day, and that that's not actually our problem. Yeah. And we'll spray it down. See if it's holding anymore. Alright, I hear it again. Okay, just finishing up my noon cup of coffee, and then we are back at it. We pressurized the turbo. That seemed to hold adequately. I'm still looking for some specifics on how much pressure that should hold. But now, since we're waiting for the turbo or the intercooler boots that Napa didn't have, they ordered them in. And now I'm going to isolate the intercooler itself and see if that holds pressure. So we'll see what happens. So Tyson's taking the intercooler tube off one more time, and we're going to see if we can stop the leak temporarily just to prove that that's what the problem is, because I'm still not convinced. So I put the intercooler tube back on, plugged the end, and put a fitting in there. So this is going to pressurize all the way from the turbo up through this coupling and out to here, which is where I suspect the problem to be. So I'll just show you what it does. It held pressure okay, I'm satisfied. So, but as I pump it up here, hopefully nothing blows off. I had that happen earlier. just about killed myself. So I'll get it up to around 20 psi, maybe not quite that high so I don't blow one of these caps off. But, well, you guys, it was another day of really not that much success. We isolated the turbo and the initial part of the intercooler tube that comes out of the turbo. That seemed to be holding pressure fine. Any leakage that was there is probably due to our plugs. And then we were able to isolate the main intercooler tube coming out of there until right by the intercooler, and that seemed fine as well. So the next part was the intercooler itself, which of course is a different size, and I could not for the life of me find any kind of plug or anything like that to close off the intercooler and pressurize it. I tried all kinds of contraptions and nothing seemed to work very well. So we're gonna give it a rest for the day. We'll try again tomorrow. The new boots for the intercooler tube will be in tomorrow morning, so I'll put those on tomorrow and see if that makes a difference. We basically isolated up to the point where the leak was that we found, and so theoretically that's our problem. We'll get that part on tomorrow and fix her up. So we'll see what happens with that, and but tomorrow, man, tomorrow we gotta fix it because I need it on Friday. So yep, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so this has to come off, this has to come off. The intake tube is already off. It's lying down there. So I've already got one cap. I'm gonna get like one or two more so we can block off a couple different spots and see if we can get these rubber boots at Napa so that I can replace those today. Last night I went home and rage organized the service truck, so it's all nice and tidy. I also rage fixed the John Deere, so the John Deere is working for the first time in weeks. Okay, so the next thing to isolate is the intercooler. If I can plug the intercooler and pressurize that side, I will figure out if the leak is in the intercooler or on the other side of the intercooler, and that's going to narrow it down to that coupling right there where the intercooler tube meets up with the intercooler itself. Okay, let's see if she'll take this hill. Come on, baby, get it. Oh yeah. Can I stay at 40 at the top? Ah, so close. Alright guys, we got it. Let me show you what I found. So the last test for the turbo intercooler basically ruled it out because it pressurized the whole thing just fine. It was holding pressure really well. I think there was actually a boost leak, but that's not what was causing our problem. So we fixed the boost leak. The boost is working great now, but I had pretty much given up, and then I went over to the fuel side of the engine to look at the P pump. And so while I was over there, I saw this doohickey, which is the fuel shutoff solenoid sitting right here, right there, and it works this manual mechanical shutoff lever, and it just looked funny. It had this weird like sack thing here that I had not noticed before, and I fiddled with it and I just did not like the way that it was sitting on there, and so I looked up what it did, and the symptoms made me curious. And so I took it off, and literally as soon as I took it off, it fell apart into like all these pieces. Well guys, that's it. I took us 3 days of goofing off, messing with the boost to figure it out. Ended up being a fuel starvation issue caused by the fuel shutoff solenoid. That's basically what's connected to the key to shut the truck off. So now Dan has to open the hood to shut it off until I get a new solenoid. But it runs fine, works fine. You can actually feel it breathing and boosting and getting enough fuel in the higher gears. Transmission shifting great actually, which I was really worried before because it was shifting really rough, but it just wasn't getting enough power to slip into that next gear properly. So it's working great. Just in time. Matt's going to load it up, send it out for deliveries tomorrow. Dan doesn't have to drive the loft truck all over the hills on the island, which is awesome because I'm sure he would have had a good attitude, but he would have been cursing me under his breath. So, alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Check out next time. We've got two 12-valve Cummins that we're going to tune the P-pumps on. The service truck needs to get tuned down after boost, and the blue and white truck needs to go up. And so we're going to tinker with those. We'll do an episode on P-pumps. So see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Lord, for turbo diesels. Subscribe to check out our next project on the farm.